Hi ladies, I'm Pidge.
And I'm Moen.
Welcome to the Night Shift Court podcast. We are two shift-working fantasy book lovers and love nothing more than leaving reality behind for a bookish adventure.
Join us as we go under the mountain to discuss our favourite fantasy fiction tales and the authors behind them.
Come with us to explore the stories, one shift at a time. Hi ladies.
Hello, welcome back.
I feel like you get better at it every time. Good voice training.
Yeah. So here we are, back at A Court of Mist and Fury, episode 2, but
13.
okay. We should have really clarified whether or not we were going to call it. I mean, I think anyway, here we are, back at okay. A Court of Mist and Fury, chapters 6 to 10. So kicking it off with chapter 6. Feyre's in the night court. She's getting herself used to the place.
Yeah.
And her and Rhys are having a bit of a chit chat.
Yeah. Well, they've had breakfast together. She's agreed to learn reading and shielding.
Yes.
They go off into another little room together and Rhys lays a bit of paper in front of her and she's like, I know my alphabet. I'm not that much of an idiot. And he's like,
Okay.
steady. I didn't say you were.
Stand down.
Yeah. Calm the farm.
Yeah.
She agrees to read and to shield. Oh, and I should say that before they go into this secluded little room, we get introduced to a new character.
We do. Our
More.
favourite. So exciting. So
Yeah.
a beautiful blonde female
Yeah.
appears and Rhys obviously introduces her as more his cousin.
Or Morrigan.
Yeah.
Specifically.
But Feyre, the first thing she realises is that they don't look anything alike.
Yeah, that's right. Other than being beautiful.
Yeah.
Moore has a really fun, sort of quirky personality.
Yeah.
She speaks the truth,
Yes.
100%.
Already love her because she's warm and bubbly and completely what you what Feyre wouldn't expect from another female in the night court so close to Rhys, considering what Ianthe is to Tamlin.
That's right,
She's
yeah.
expecting like this other Ianthe sort of character, but she's obviously not going to get that.
No, I don't think she expects her to be like a happy, chirpy female at all.
Yeah.
So she's quite taken back in general.
Yes.
When I first read about this and he introduced her as Morrigan or Moore, I instantly remembered that Morrigan is more than just her name.
More.
It's more than just her name.
Okay.
So the Morrigan is actually a figure from Irish mythology.
Right.
Like, have you ever heard of Morrigan?
No.
The Morrigan has appeared in Irish mythology for a really long time, but it's also appeared in other mythology as well throughout the centuries. Mainly described as being associated with war and fate, especially fortune telling of doom, death, and victory in battle. Yeah, which is interesting that she is named that. Often appears as a crow or a raven as well.
Maybe that's what I've heard of because there's lots of crows and ravens in lots of stories that I've read.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
She's often described as appearing as a trio of individuals, all sisters, but not to be confused with the triple goddess,
Right.
which is the maiden mother crone. So she's not that.
Right.
She just appears as three sisters.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So I just thought that was interesting that they shared a name.
A bit of trivia for you.
Learn a little bit about what else they share other than name.
Yes. So we're getting taught to read by Rhys now.
That's right. Yeah.
And in true Rhys fashion, he conjures up something cheeky.
Yes.
The first note he gives to Feyre to read says, "You look absolutely delicious today, Feyre."
I love it.
Oh, so do I. And not even in like a creepy, vampire way.
Just in general.
Yeah.
I'm just jumping ahead a little bit now that Rhys actually gives her multiple of these over her visits in the night court and they say, here's the most amazing, the most delicious, whatever it is. But I actually heard a theory that was quite funny that, again, spoiler, when Rhys and Feyre go and she's appointed as High Lady, they say a set of vows. Feyre's vows to Rhys are actually, like she pulls out the bits of paper and she's like, Rhys is the most delicious, my lord, and just reads all of them out to him as a vow. Which I thought was great.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I just love them together. It's so heartwarming.
She practices her alphabet and she shields while
Yes.
Rhys is gone. He returns and he's pretty happy with her progress.
She knows that there's nothing else to do.
I think she's glad to have anything to do.
Yeah, she's task oriented.
That's right.
And she finally has a sense of purpose. So, of course, she's going to do what she's told. And I don't think that she does it out of any fear or consequence. I think she genuinely is interested in learning these things and it's useful to her. So she's going to knuckle down and do them.
Yeah. And Rhys takes her into another room, which is in quite a tall tower because why wouldn't you have a one room for everything? No.
Yeah. I mean, goals.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
That's right. She's in a room in this quite a tall section of this building. On the wall is a large map and on the table is a smaller map which is marked with all of the courts and villages everywhere in Perinthian except for the Night Court, which is quite smart because Rhys doesn't want her to know where any of his villages are or any of the settlements are in the Night Court because she could take that information back to the Spring Court.
Of course.
So he's protecting his people by
As
doing
always. His entire being is focused on the protection of those cities and those people.
Yeah. And he talks to Feyre about how war is coming to the lands again and she's quite shocked because she thought that Amarantha was it.
Yeah.
She just thought that this was the way it's going to be
Yeah.
for all eternity now that she's immortal.
Yeah, and I think that the reader gets a bit blindsided by the fact that Amarantha's the baddie when we know all along that Amarantha is a pawn in the King of Hyburn's reign. So I think that it's easy to forget that there is even someone else bigger and badder.
That's right.
Yeah.
Rhys describes Amarantha as a test and she learns that the King of Hybern wants to destroy the wall and rule Perinthian and the mortal lands and the fairy lands himself, essentially. So no more courts. And Feyre finds out that Rhys did actually fight in the war. He believes that Perinthian's at risk because they have several untested High Lords. So you remember how Amarantha killed a number of the High Lords under the mountain and then their sons, stepped up. So none of those High Lords have actually been a High Lord in their actual court because they've been under the mountain that whole time. So they've got several untested High Lords, broken courts and high priestesses angling for control.
What's interesting is we learn more about the King of Hybern here and like the planning of his campaign to invade as far as the mortal lands. It all comes back to the fact that they hate the mortal species. So there's this really big push and naturally you have to go through all of Prithian to get to those places.
Yeah.
So it's going to be carnage. So getting back to Rhys and Feyre and their little chat, she happens to ask about how long she's going to be bound to him with this bargain. And she says that after what happened under the mountain, she doesn't feel like they owe each other anything. But obviously, that's not the nature of the bargain. She says she thought he was different by how he was keeping her. And Rhys says that they had Feyre wrapped up like a present for Tamlin on their wedding day, as if she was his reward. And her response is so, which makes him really angry.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show you her state of mind because she'd completely given up. She was willing to be the present.
Yeah.
Even though she's the whole entire reason all of them are free.
Yes, that's right. She's forgotten that.
She has forgotten that. And I feel like Rhys is obviously going to be the one to remind her.
So Rhys wants Feyre to be the go-between for him and Tamlin because he understands that their relationship will never be mended. Feyre doesn't know that it's Rhys and Tamlin's family that killed each other at this point. So she doesn't know that there's particularly bad blood between them. She only knows that Rhys doesn't like Tamlin and Tamlin doesn't like Rhys. He wants her to be the go-between to see if any of the ties that Tamlin has to Hybern can be used as an advantage because Tamlin's father was quite close with the King of Hybern.
Yes.
So they were besties. We again hear about the theme of high ladies.
Yes.
So Rhys reveals that there can be such thing as high ladies, but now isn't the time for that conversation.
Later,
I'm
Feyre,
dying,
darling.
I'm dying.
Later.
I'm dying to know.
I'll tell you all about it when you are one.
Yeah. Rhys reveals what I've been suspecting and what I think many people were was that Feyre has significant powers that she's untested.
And she obviously because she doesn't even know what each of the High Lords bestowed upon her.
That's right.
Because obviously we've seen them give up a part of them to remake her.
Yep.
She's Fae and now she has a little bit of each of those High Lords and their powers within her. Doesn't know what they are, doesn't know how to use them. And Rhys tells her this, that he thinks that she will be able to wield them. I think that he thinks she's going to be a big part of the upcoming war, which is why, again, he wants to make sure she's prepared.
Yes.
He obviously despises Tamlin in general, but even more so because his behaviour is locking her up and disempowering her. And Rhys is like, fuck that.
Yeah.
You come here for a week and we'll see what we can do in the time that I'm given. And she figures this out in the long run.
She does.
And she wants to stay more and more.
Well, I think he actually even says to Feyre at some point, like, you don't want to be standing between the mortal world and the King of Highburn and not know how to use your power, because you could be the thing, the straw that breaks the camel's back. The next morning, Feyre actually walks into Rhys and Moore speaking together in one of the rooms, and we hear the names of two new characters. So again, already in this book, we've met Ianthe Moore, and now we are meeting or hearing about Cassian and you can say it.
Azriel. Shadow Daddy. I don't know why I get like a flustered.
Oh my. He's not here.
I know, he's in here, which is
all the time.
As long as you don't say it in bed.
Oh. Noted.
Anyway, yes, we learn about Cassian and Azriel.
Yeah.
And
the Illyrians as well, which is a word we haven't heard before. Nothing else other than the word is what we understand. And then all of a sudden, Feyre's week is up. Rhys takes her back to the spring court. She arrives in the garden, walks through and finds Tamlin and Lucian in the study.
Yeah. And Tamlin is furiously checking her over, but Rhys, true to his word, has not done anything untoward.
That's right.
He has returned her in a manner of peace and exactly when he meant to.
Yep.
He's simply taking the bargain seriously.
And he, instead of doing what Feyre wants him to do, which is to just hold her and reassure her and provide his love and comfort, he basically interrogates her about everything that she's seen and heard in the night court, and she's got to sit there and endure their questions, for hours, as opposed to what she thought she'd be coming home to.
Yep.
So yet again, it's just another example of how Tamlin has such poor emotional intelligence and has failed her yet again.
And also, he's trashed the house.
He has, yeah.
What a child.
Yeah, he is. So he's a tantrum thrower, that one.
Isn't he?
Yeah.
Just hasn't really harnessed his beast energy.
That's right, yeah.
What I hate about this next bit is how Feyre tries to just slip back in to the only thing that is comforting and the only thing that is sure is the physical intimacy.
So she describes it exactly like that, though.
Yeah. She only wants...
So they never had a problem with that part. It was everything else.
Yeah. She doesn't want a High Lord. She wants Tamlin in the most simplistic of ways.
Yeah.
Which is their two bodies together.
Yeah.
Because like you say, they don't have an issue there.
Yeah.
And if it was just that, she'd probably be happy to just sit around and do fuck all. It's not that simple, and that's not the story.
That's exactly right. The story would end right there.
The story would end. The end.
So responsibility-wise, she's thrown back in again and the type arrives. So she sits quietly next to Tamlin for hours after hours, lineup of high and lesser fae bringing their offerings forward to the spring court as a really significant event of the water wraith arrives. So she's looking like the wet version of the cereal by the sounds of it.
Yes, a grey-skinned fae woman with no clothes on.
And like slitted nostrils and like her hair's like really long and scraggly.
As always, I have to liken it to something
The ring lady. Were you going to say the ring?
No, I wasn't. But I wish that I had. But in Harry Potter, specifically the scene where Harry's swallowed the gillyweed to go and fetch Ron.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes,
the mermaids.
The mermaids.
That are scary.
They are.
They're not Ariel-esque. They're like...
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not going to translate to podcast world. But I know what I mean. Insert image here. Yeah. So that's what I think of when I think water wraiths.
Well, I think of the Ring.
Okay.
You know that wet girl that
Yes.
comes out of the well?
Yeah.
Okay. That
Fair.
is what I think of, but grey skinned instead of pale.
Yeah. Very death warmed up.
Yeah, that's right. So Water Wraith Lady arrives. Tamlin explains to Feyre that when she tries to ask him or question him around why he still wants a basket of fish from this lady when they have, so much.
Yeah.
So Tamlin explains that they do the tithe because his father did the tithe, his father before that did the tithe, and it's essentially just a tradition.
Yes.
Even though it's completely, seems irrelevant.
It is irrelevant. They've got enough. They don't need any more. But anyway.
Especially a basket of fish.
That's, the ATO for you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They don't care.
No, they don't.
Tamlin is the king of the ATO. So Water Wraith Lady leaves knowing that she's got 3 days to come up with her basket of fish and that she probably won't. Feyre,
she says there's no fish in the lake.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So she's like, I've got nothing to give you because there isn't.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's true, we don't know.
So Feyre excuses herself and goes after the Water Wraith outside. She goes up to her and she gives her bracelet, her necklace and her earrings to give to Tamlin as payment. Feyre says, the Water Wraith says to her, what do you want in return? And Feyre says, it's not a bargain, just take them. Mm-hmm. And the Water Wraith does. She obviously takes them back. We don't see this, but she obviously takes them back inside to Tamlin and gives them to him as her payment for the tithe. And then it cuts to a scene about dinner that night.
Yeah.
And he's
pissed.
Yeah.
He calls the fairy a gluttonous fairy.
Yeah.
The wraith.
Yes. Yeah.
And paints this picture that they'll just say anything to get what they need, what they want.
Yeah.
There's plenty of fish, but
they'll eat anything.
They're not going to give me any because they don't believe in the tithe, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that's right.
And he is really pissed that Feyre has given this jewellery
that he gave to her.
Yeah, which I kind of get it.
Yeah,
but it's this human heart that she has that she can't get rid of.
I think it would mean something more to Feyre if she didn't have such an abundance of jewellery. She said she's never wears the same thing twice.
Yeah.
So I think it would be different if it was the only jewellery that he'd ever brought for her.
Yeah, fair.
Understandable.
Yeah.
But I think
it's not special.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything to her. Again, the act of gift giving is not Feyre's love language.
No.
At this particular dinner, Feyre also slips into Lucien's mind and she describes the feeling of his mind as old, clever, sad, endlessly sad and guilt-ridden. So again, that's her powers manifesting without her controlling it.
Yeah, she didn't mean to.
That's right.
And she's left burnt marks on the wooden table. I think that this is the first time that we really see that Feyre is probably more powerful than anyone could ever realise.
Yeah.
Because this is not without her training. This is without any of her control, she doesn't even know. And this is the sort of stuff she's doing. She's burnt the table and she's entered someone's mind.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Epic.
All within 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Alice confirms to Feyre that word will spread of what she did for the Water Wraith because they're a lesser Fae and the High Fae see them as exactly that.
That's right.
And the fact that Feyre has done that for a lesser Fae, that word will spread.
Yeah.
And Feyre hates that because word has already spread about her being Feyre Cursebreaker and she hates people talking about her and looking at her and leering at her.
I think she doesn't want any attention. She wants to help, but in the most incognito way. Because she's just so undeserving of any love or affection or attention other than what she craves from Tamlin.
Yeah.
She just wants to be in the shadows.
And she waits up for Tamlin as well that night, but he doesn't come to her bed. So she goes looking for him eventually and finds him again in the office. He apologises profusely, as you would expect.
Yeah, gives her a present.
And yet again gives her another gift.
Fuck's sake, honestly.
He does not learn.
He doesn't. You'd think he would have figured it out by now. She doesn't care. She's giving away jewellery.
Yeah.
She doesn't give a fuck.
That's right. And he gives her a box of paint, which...
Yeah.
She discusses earlier in the book around how she's only been back into her painting studio once since she's come back from under the mountain.
Yeah.
And
it's painful.
and so she shut the door and has never looked back again.
Yep.
So he thinks by giving her the paint that it might change her back into the person that she was before, but it does not match the person
No.
that she is now. And she knows that she's a very different person now than she was before.
Yeah. I think it's a bit much for him to assume that it can take just a travelling painting kit to turn person back into someone that's pre-murderer, pre the suffering that she's gone through. Like, is he that clueless? This is, again, why I can't stand him, because I just think that, like, when you love someone, you try to help them through things. And he's just, like, trying to make her forget.
Yeah. Yeah. He's just smothering her with gifts, which she does not appreciate.
So he asks her if she actually wants to marry him, and she says she does, but she's drowning. I think this is so refreshing. The first time we've actually heard her admit it. And the more he does this to her, it feels as he may as well be pushing her head under the water. That's huge for her to actually admit. And
That's
then
right.
he gets really angry and his power just destroys the room, like breaks the windows, the furniture.
See, I read it as it was Feyre's power.
Oh, okay. Maybe.
Yeah. I read it as in like she was overwhelmed and so
Maybe
she
it
released
is.
her power, but it shielded herself subconsciously.
Maybe it is. I assumed that it was his power,
Yeah.
but it was her shield.
Yes.
But maybe we're going to have to do some research, or just let us know in the comments what you think this is, because I interpreted it one way, he just interpreted the other.
Yeah. Interesting. Either way, the office is ruined.
It's fucked.
Yet again, this poor office
I know.
has copped it like 3 times so far.
And all I can see in my head is Dumbledore fixing the Muggle house.
Yes. It's always Harry Potter with you.
Why?
This is why I'm in love with you.
I can't help it. It's my ride or die.
Yeah, love it.
Okay, so that takes us to chapter 10.
That's right. And yet again, Tamlin's apologising. Sorry.
Sorry, but keeps doing it.
Yeah.
Narcissist.
That's right.
Fuck.
Feyre doesn't have the words to verbally tell him anything else. She just kind of shuts down. And so she gives him a hug. Next morning, Tamlin's called away again. So basically everything goes back to normal. Feyre really embraces the silence, describing herself as sometimes going days without speaking to anybody. Could you imagine?
Actually, I would love that. Except for messaging you
Yeah, okay.
and sending memes about book shit.
Yeah.
I would love to not talk to people for days.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, fair enough. Feyre goes to bed one night and she wakes up to voices in the hallway, and the voices of Tamlin and Rhys. She does a mental tally around how many days it's been, and she realises that Rhys is back again and she's going to the night court.
Yeah.
She jumps out of bed, runs to the door, realises that she's naked, grabs a little towel, a towel or a blanket or something. Who knows?
Yeah, because
I mean, why bother?
They've deflected with sex from the night before. Right?
That's right.
They've just dealt with their problems by just having sex
That's
and
right.
not talking about anything.
And I mean, Rhys and Tamlin have both seen her naked, so, you know, it's fine.
That's right. See, I forget.
Just
well,
walk out.
yes, the loincloth didn't really.
Yeah, the sheer scarf. Yeah. Didn't really leave much to the imagination.
No. Tamlin tells Rhys that he'll give him anything he wants if he ends the bargain now.
Yeah.
And Rhys tells him he already has everything he wants.
He's so cocky and I love it.
I love it too. And he takes Feyre with him.
Winnows her back to the night court again. And, before he goes, he makes a really scathing comment to Tamlin, which I love. And he's like, Tamlin, are you running low on food here? Which is like such an insult, isn't it?
It is. Considering that they're going through the tithe and everything.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
It really needs a basket of fish for Feyre.
ATO strikes again.
That's it for this episode of the Night Shift Court podcast. Join us for next week's episode, where we will continue the adventure from ACOTAR's Book 2, A Court of Mist and Fury.
Whichever platform you're listening on, we would so appreciate if you could give us a 5-star review. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Night Shift Court.
I hope the night is kind.